Come one, come all. Feast your eyes upon the most marvelous martial magnificence that the Underdark has to offer. I, Baloth, the Entertainer, cordially invite you to join the audience of my latest spectacle, the Black Pits!
Far to the east of the Sword Coast and across the Sea of Fallen Stars lie the oligarchy of Thesk and the city of Fant, at the western end of the famous Golden Way, the gateway to the east and the nations of Kadator. In the shore quarter of Fant, within the popular Celestial Dragon Inn and Tea House, the Sima brothers entertain the patrons with sword and sorcery. Jin's demonstration of his family sword style was the warm-up act to his younger brother's arcane display that now wowed the crowds. Jin looked on with some envy as his brother conjured small, magical serpentine dragons that flew over the heads of the crowd, which whooped and yelled in delight at his latest exhibition. Khan had always been special, with an innate understanding of the weave that allowed him to create new spells almost at will. Untested thus far by real combat, his magic was largely limited to basic cantrips for his own amusement and utility. But Jin had seen his brother practice with bolts of magical energy that struck targets with unerring accuracy, as well as put the family pest to sleep with a spell that Jin was almost certain would work against people too. The patrons of the Celestial Dragon Inn were an unusual sight to behold, had this been somewhere else in Faerun. But, as a melting pot of cultures and races, primarily making a living via trade along the Golden Way, Thesk was notable being one of the most diverse and tolerant nations in Faerun, where orcs, gnomes, humans, and others lived side by side in relative harmony. Jin looked around the inn at individuals of interest. In the far corner, an elven woman sat impassively at her table, observing Khan's display with interest, but showing little enthusiasm by the rest of the crowd. By her attire and decorated robes, Jin guessed that she too was some sort of mage or sorcerer. Besides her sat a tall man whose pale skin, pronounced features, and style of clothing suggested that he hailed from the west. Perhaps the Sword Coast, maybe the city of Waterdeep or Neverwinter. He scanned the room with his eyes every now and then, perhaps keeping an eye on the other patrons as the elven mage's bodyguard. Another patron sat alone in the opposite corner of the tavern. He, or maybe she, also observed Khan's show impassively, his or her face mostly covered with a hood and mask that obscured its features and made Jin feel somewhat uneasy. As Jin wondered why somebody would wear a hooded mask indoors, his heart almost missed a beat as a maiden of exquisite beauty, garbed in all-white robes of the show style, stepped into the Celestial Dragon. She scanned the scene, apparently oblivious to all the mostly male heads turned in her direction, and apparently uninterested or unimpressed by Khan's display on the stage. Khan too had noticed her entrance and immediately conjured a colorful robin which flew toward the maiden, a tiny flower clutched in its beak. The crowd whistled and wooed in appreciation, and the maiden allowed the robin to settle gracefully in her palm. She smiled, took the flower, and encouraged the robin to fly to its freedom through the still open doors, but then continued to walk through the crowd, apparently in search of somebody, and ignoring Khan's gesture, which typically had girls falling at his feet. Undeterred, Khan began to chant again, in an arcane language Jin could not understand. He knew his brother well, and he knew he would not give up so easily on so fair a maiden, especially with so many watching eyes all around and a reputation to uphold. Jin was sure that Khan would up the ante and try something more impressive. Suddenly, A flash emanated from, or near Khan, so bright that it left Jin almost blind. Blurry figures darted in front of his vision as screams of panic erupted amongst the crowd. What was going on, Jin wondered. Had Khan's spell gone wrong, or was this part of some reckless attempt to impress the maiden? Before he could process what was going on, Jin felt a sudden lightness, as if he was no longer standing on his own feet. The blinding light was gone, replaced with absolute darkness and silence. And then...
What? Where are we?
Who spiked me drink? I was just in the tavern talking to Myrna. Hey, I saw those folks there too.
We're in some kind of fighting pit. Look out! On!
Jin's senses returned to a riot of sights and sounds. Clearly, he was no longer in the celestial dragon, and he was not alone. Around him were some of the other patrons from the tavern, the look of shock and confusion on their faces reflecting his own emotions perfectly. Khan was amongst them, and one look at his brother's face told Jin that this was not his doing. Clearly they were all in terrible danger. Several of the regulars of the Celestial Dragon already lay dead ahead of them, brutally slain by the monsters that now approached the rest of the group. Instinctively, Jin reached for his sword, but found it missing from his belt. Whatever magic that had transported the group here had also stripped them of all their weapons and armor. They were in some sort of gladiatorial fighting pit, littered with the dead and their broken and rusty weapons. Hurriedly, the group gathered what they could with which to defend themselves.
What? Such menial.
Not a problem.
I am here.
What would you have me do? If you insist.
What?
What would you have me do? Your wish?
Yes?
Your concern?
I stand ready.
Hurry up!
Make it quick.
You have qualified.
What's next? Ah, this group. Are they awake yet? Oh, rouse yourselves, you lice-laden layabouts. Stand and salute your new master, Baldur, the Entertainer. You may also thank me, since your meaningless lives are about to become infinitely more exciting, and quite likely, abbreviated. You have been brought here by an unlucky roll of the die. Well, unlucky for you. Gather some equipment, gird your loins, and prepare to fight. Nashim, my obedient slave, take care of them. And don't forget to give them a little spending money.
As my master commands, take these coins, speak with the dealers gathered here to equip yourselves. Once you are prepared, report to Master Baldur. Do not attempt to escape, lest he command me to snuff out your life.
After some moments of hesitation and confusion, the elven mage speaks up, apparently confident of speaking on behalf of the rest of the group. Where are we? What is going on? I demand an explanation.
You have been summoned to this island fortress by Baloth. We are in a complex known as the Black Pits, dug by Durgar slaves. You are to fight in the battle pits for the amusement of Baloth's guests. I have answered your questions. Now prepare for battle.
Wait! Baloth said you are his slave. Together we could rise up against him.
I am bound by an undying Geas. Otherwise, I would have slaughtered Baloth long ago.
I can hear you!
Prepare yourself for battle, mortal. When you are ready to face your fate, speak with Baloth.
I don't like it, but I too feel the effects of this undying Geas one day. Alright, now we have a moment of pause. I would like to welcome you to part 1 of my Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, the Black Pit Let's Play. It's gonna be another blind Let's Play, mostly. I played the first couple of battles on my iPad and gave up when it got a little bit difficult, and I'm not the most patient of players, so I found it a bit too tedious to micromanage a full party on an iPad, particularly when it comes to micromanaging positioning, which is a lot simpler on the PC, so I can quite easily change formations and right click to change the direction of the formation faces. Now obviously for the purposes of this introductory video, I've tried to roleplay a bit of a backstory, but to be honest, for the rest of this series, it's not going to be much of a focus, the roleplay, because as far as I'm aware at least, the Black Pits is not a very story-heavy campaign. And I think it's mostly just going to be a series of gladiatorial battles. Now, if I try to roleplay it with any seriousness, I'm going to have a couple of problems. Most obvious one being, even from the very few battles I fought on my iPad, it became clear that the group levels up way quicker than they would normally in a standard Baldur's Gate campaign, which doesn't make any sense from a character development perspective. So I'm going to rationalize that as we don't get to see every single battle that the group fights. So you get to see, and I get to play the highlights from their time in the Black Pits. But even so, I've no idea how this is going to end, and I also have no idea how the Black Pits 2 is going to begin. Now I do intend at this stage to use the exact same group for the Black Pits 2, so I don't want to create some sort of elaborate storyline that doesn't make sense in that context either. So I'm going to relax and just treat it like I guess like a bit of a puzzle, fighting through a series of challenges and seeing how far we can get playing blind. Hopefully all the way, of course. That's always the the goal anyway. And I will also continue to be sorry, playing on core rules difficulty. The main reason I'm actually really looking forward to this this series is the party that I'm going to be using, which you may have actually had a first glimpse at from my tutorial videos. But basically, this entire group is composed of characters that have some significance to me personally. So actually, I'm going to go into quite a lot of detail about them in part 2 of this series. So if you're interested in the party composition, then do check that out. But I will provide a quick overview now. First thing to say is, as always, I avoid using min-maxed power gaming characters. What I mean by that is, if I got a warrior, then he's either going to be strong and tough, or he's going to be quick and accurate. I also avoid using 18s too much, and I think every single character either has no 18s at all, or only has one to represent a particular speciality. I really don't like characters with 18, 18, 18, or even better, and then you know, another 18 somewhere as their primary stat. I just prefer characters to be a bit more realistic, more closely resembling the sort of characters that you run across as NPC companions in the main game, rather than a group of superhumans, you know, fast, strong, intelligent, etc. In terms of class composition, we've got a pure class mage, elven mage, a cavalier, the first of my illegal custom characters, a fighter druid, the rebooted Jin, starting off as a Kensai, with plans obviously to do class into a mage, but depending on how much experience you get with Black Pits 1, I'm not sure we'll get to do that in this game. We've then got Khan, the just a vanilla sorcerer, and finally Otori Takeo, who is the second of my custom modded characters. He is a fighter shadow dancer modding class. Like I said, all these characters have personal significance for me, and I look forward to explaining them in part 2. So if you're interested in why I've got a fighter shadow dancer and a Kensai druid, as well as the other characters, then please do check that out. But if you're not particularly bothered and want to just see some battles, then please skip ahead to part 3. I'll see you regardless.